idea of when.
There's nothing that we're doing.
Right.
Okay.
This was going to you guys.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, folks. For all you diehard planners, it's great to have you here. We have a grand committee of one today, so today's action will be a communication from the chair to the council, which means that opportunity for public comment will be made available again in City Council. But we do have a rather, maybe the best word is succinct agenda today. We have two items on our consent, and that would be, we'll start this way. The first item, Roberto, you want to go just read that into the record?
Yes, Councilman. It's a Cultural Heritage Commission report to include the Cine House as a historic cultural monument.
And that's in District 5?
Yes.
And that will approve and move as a consent item since there are no cards. And item 2 will hold special. Item 3A, can you read that one?
Sure, Councilman. It's a report from the Planning Commission. It's a draft ordinance. It's basically to amend the municipal code to implement the downtown design guide and urban design standards and guidelines. And 3B, which accompanies is related to item 3A, is a general plan amendment to the Central City Community Plan.
So let's have the staff come up and present 3A and 3B. We'll do, for the record, a summary of what has been accomplished. And I think it's important to share this with the listening public who might be listening either by computer or by phone.
Okay. Emily Gabeletti for the Planning Department. With me is Simon Pastusha and also Lillian Birkenheim from the CRA. These two items taken together constitute new design guidelines and new street standards for about an 1,800-acre area in downtown Los Angeles. The code amendments will help to clarify some of the design guidelines so that stakeholders in the future will have clear and consistent rules about the approach of their new projects in downtown. I don't really have much to say. I'll be succinct and say that it really has been a partnership with the Bureau of Engineering, the Department of Transportation, the CRA ourselves, as well as a significant number of community stakeholders with whom we met during this approximately 18-month process. Simon Pastusha is going to go over the actions that we would like you as a committee to recommend today to the full City Council.
Great. Ms. Pastusha?
Good afternoon. Simon Pastusha. There's a couple technical things that we want you to note that we're actually amending only really 4 sections, major sections of the code. It's 1221, 1222, 1237, and 17.05, and those are just actually implementing or referring to this actually downtown design guide or making slight technical changes to the code. So 3A should be fairly simple. On 3B, we would request that the committee direct that the ad hoc downtown street standards committee continue on so that we can actually continue our work. We also would like that we have a series of just minor little changes to that, which include directing us to actually look at where we are going to put out curb extension, curb bump outs. We have to do some more technical work with the Department of Transportation. That'd be very helpful. We want to expand actually and take this work and direct us to focus up on Chinatown through the cornfield to where our current project ends and kind of patch that gap. We also need to continue on our work with other agencies, I think, to direct us to continue on and develop this sort of team approach to other areas of the city, and so that we can keep this interagency working group and this kind of team development so that we can actually focus instead of being in silos. working as teams to develop a better city. I think the last thing is we have a draft resolution for you to move forward, which will incorporate this language. And then there's two other little technical things, which is just Exhibit H, which has to do with complete list of named alleys. We're expanding that. The city interested. We have a few more to add to that. That is just sort of a technical detail, and we're just doing technical corrections to that, and we'll get that into the report. And I think that, exactly. And the last thing is that the circulation map that was incorporated, there was some typos in there, so we're submitting a revised circulation map, corrected, and so that will be it's dated February 19th, and so that will be in the file also for the whole action to move forward to council.
So all these amendments have been folded in.
Yes.
Great.
Exactly.
Thank you, Ms. Pastucci. I see we have other guests at the podium. I'd like to introduce yourselves and just talk talk about what has happened and what makes this so extraordinary.
It's extraordinary because all the different city departments came together to do a plan together, one that we can all agree upon. What has happened often in the past is that each of us, Lillian Birkenheim from the Community Development Agency, I look at a plan. That plan also gets looked at by City Planning and DOT and the Bureau of Engineering, and we all have a take on how wide the sidewalk should be. And the developer generally gets caught in the middle.
Right.
Now we have a plan that we're all consistent on, and when we finish this process, the developer will be able to go to Navigate LA, click on the site, and be told exactly what it is that he needs to be able to do. So it's been a wonderful collaboration between the departments, and hopefully better for the city as we complete.
Great. Please.
Jay Kim from the Department of Transportation.
Good afternoon. I think you might have inadvertently turned off the switch there.
Okay, sorry.
There you go.
I think the other point that I really wanted to emphasize is the fact that we're making good use of technology, and when we get together, one of the things that really helped us out is that we actually had a lot of great information at our fingertips. So it wasn't necessarily one department armed with all the information coming and trying to sell an aspect of a project to the rest of the departments, and then having the departments then go back and have to digest, come back, a couple weeks later, meet again. We're actually doing things in real time where we actually bring up aerials, striping plans, traffic counts, any relevant data that really helped us make a on-the-spot decision. It really allowed us to cover a large area in a very short period of time. And I think this model could be how we do city planning or infrastructure planning or transportation and land use planning in the future, where you get various departments who've kind of had limited responsibilities and very myopic sort of take on things because they were given a very small slice of that particular responsibility. But now we're actually working together, learning from other departments and what other issues are there. And in that process, I think we're coming up with more holistic approach in trying to build a better city. So I think that's a significant departure from the way we have done things in the past.
Fantastic. I think it's music to many of the stakeholders' ears who have found themselves caught between the different decision makers, if you will, for respective departments as they go through their discretions. But I want to encapsulate this in terms of what it means for the development process. If you had to guesstimate, and this is no guarantee, but to guesstimate how much time we have saved because of the use of technology and coordination, could we give a thumbnail sketch? Are we shaving off months, years, weeks? Does anybody have a handle on that?
We've never been asked that question. Well, I'll put it in this perspective. When developers come in to see us now, they go see in the past, CRA, and they'd get their marching orders, and then they'd have to set an appointment, and then they'd go see DOT, and then they'd get their marching orders, and then they'd come to us, and maybe they'd be crying about something, and they'd come see us, and we would look at it and maybe say something that was contradictory or not, and then of course they go see Bureau of Engineering, and Bureau of Engineering just follows the rules.
So at this time, the project is stagnating, the clock is ticking, the dollars, the bills are accumulating, staff is being paid, but there's no productivity because of a lack of decision.
Right. I mean, the clock is ticking, and the representatives of the developer and even their architects are, in the past, have had to go from one division to another, even before they get up to the public hearing phase, to explain things, to clarify things. So, and in downtown, a particularly difficult issue was when the citywide street standards were applied. They don't fit downtown, but that was the marching orders that one department had. So we would end up, and the developers, and sometimes the community would end up caught in the middle of something that did not make sense, but nonetheless was the current city rule. These new rules make sense.
But would this be true too for the communities that were built out before the 30s and the 40s, where you have a citywide standard that just did not fit because the city did not mature the way these guidelines were dictating?
Well, you have put your finger on something that's critical, and what both Jay and Lillian and I and Simon and our colleagues Clark and Lem from engineering want to do is expand this effort to look at just those kinds of communities. Those communities were built before the city even had street standards. So we end up messing up some of the good stuff that was done years ago. This process, I think, has opened our eyes to the possibilities of going on a geographic team basis to other areas of the city, especially older areas of the city, and looking at the streets in the same way and having a kinder, gentler approach that, as Jay said, really balances needs and doesn't always look to a single solution.
I'm trying to find a way to ask this question. The process that you undertook was stimulated because you had individuals with the will to do it differently. But let's say one of you or two of you were not part of this team. Were we that vulnerable to that very subjectivity? Is there a way to structure this so that it does not become incidental or maybe by chance, because perhaps X individual is used to doing it a certain way and is resisting technology, or does not want to give up discretion?
We're trying to show the light to the rest of the departments and staff. I think there is a lot of interest already, but you're absolutely correct. In certain parts of the city, it may be business as usual, and they may not be aware of some of the work that we've undertaken and the kind of the new approach. And we've been very concerned with the same issue, because once you leave the downtown area and this immediate area and this effort, then how does it work in the rest of the city? And so our main attempt at this point is really to take all the things that we have learned through this process, and we want to really impart that knowledge, and really it's a transfer of knowledge and the training to our other colleagues in other parts of the city, where maybe they have been exposed to looking at things in this new way or using this new technology. So we actually have a training session that we're trying to schedule so that we start to impart this knowledge, but also create a new sense of doing business within other parts of the city through all of our various departments. So that's our current assignment right now, is really to set up these training sessions and invite the particular geographic area teams from each department, and we intend to sort of make it more of a standard practice.
But the harsh reality is we might come across an individual who's been doing it a certain way for 28 years, is about to retire in 2 years, and does not want to be put bit out of their comfort zone. And so do we legislate this? Do we put together a best practices list? Do we create recommendations? I mean, how do we memorialize this so that we don't have to recreate the wheel again? Because who knows when I'll get the type of talent that's in front of me now with the desire and the energy to do it the way you did.
I think we all like that idea of a best practices position, that I think all of us would be willing to put something together going forward. I will say that, Director Goldberg is handling the 12 to 2 sessions with the other departments, so that is an effort that helps bring the kind of focus that you're talking about, and I think will be a real advantage to the kind of work that Jay just spoke of going forward. I will also say that each one of us has had the experience that you talk about, and that was when you get to the staff who approve the working drawings for the street design, you get a different story than those of us who dream on the policy side. That's why, Councilman, it was critical for all of us to say that the vision of this project was not in the policy, it really was in the implementation. And as a result, the partnership between DOT and Randy Price from IT and Navigate LA will result in these new street standards being readily available to developers on the internet, and there won't be any further guesswork. That will save them an enormous amount of time.
See, the delicate balance I see here is that if a political official wants to legislate this, it's like almost casting a harness on creativity. But on the other hand, if we don't capture this advantage, this new threshold of new relationships, then it could fade away. And so from my point of view, I'm hoping, and we'll talk about this again, it's not gonna happen overnight, but perhaps there's an approach where we create enough flexibility where this creativity continue to increase with technological changes, but still meet these objectives.
We are bringing through the new community plans this same process. So, for example, next Thursday, I think, the planners from that area, DOT, redevelopment agency staff, and the Urban Design Studio will be going to the district engineers' monthly citywide meeting to introduce them to the proposed street standards for Hollywood. So we're continuing this effort. We're not stopping with Central City. When one of the other community plans gets done, we've already started a discussion with the planner about changing the possibility of changing a cross-section for a couple of blocks in that community plan. So, in fact, while this project has, I think, set the table, there are a lot more dishes that are being served, and those are just two examples of how we are continuing to work.
Well, in the age of tournaments, I want to capture these moments and put them somewhere where we could build upon them. And so I kind of feel like emotion coming on, but I don't want to go there yet. It's more like understanding how the staff can move forward and actually change the culture of our departments and how we've done things versus what we need to get done. And
I think maybe talking with our deputy director, we could talk internally about how, if you feel emotion coming on, but it's not on yet, we could talk internally about what might be the best way of taking that forward.
Right. So I'm trying to be very respectful, careful, but I want to be productive. Because when you have talent, I want to congratulate you all because it is setting a different vision, a different standard in these dire economic conditions. Every minute means something in terms of resources, dollars, and time. So we have to get smarter as a city, and unfortunately we have to be in these conditions to really grasp the gravity of our actions. So I thank you for your hard work, and hopefully we can continue to learn from this. And so our actions would be,
Well, actually, there's a speaker card, and I have one additional card on this item.
thank you, Donna, that's why I like it when you put me in check, that's great. We have Greg Fisher, District 9, and, okay, all right. Mr. Fisher wants to speak first or last, or does it matter?
Since I'm here
Go
to save
ahead.
time, Councilman, this has been a long, interesting process that is based on consensus, and that's what makes this work. It's an organic process. No one leans on anybody else. We arrive at what we consider a sensible solution. And the issue that you brought up earlier about a developer coming basically almost gird to do battle with the city by departments is undone by this process, because we invite the developer to the table to discuss issues that they may have trouble with and try to send them away with a better project. And that starting point alone, over a period of time, should save everyone a tremendous amount of money, because instead of coming at the city with this, I'm going to get this my way, or to hell with all of you, that process we hope will wander away, and people will see that this will actually be a much better way to go.
Well, thank you, Mr. Fisher. All these types of accomplishments occurs because there is a chemistry that includes not only the goodwill and the talent of the staff, but the level of accommodation and leadership from the council office. So I want to thank you and Councilman Perry for their stewardship in mind that we could grasp these kinds of opportunities, and Councilman Wisar, because I know he's in the downtown area as well, and actually prove to the private sector that because you work in the city doesn't mean we're too comfortable to be able to adapt and try to find things that are much more efficient. And I'm proving that with this action. So I thank you for that and making sure we're sending the positive message that we do want to take care of business in the way in which is compatible to our communities. And I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Will Wright.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Will Wright. I work with the AIA Los Angeles, and I wanted to be here to officially register our support. We've been really proud of the process. We have to file our letter with you, and I just wanted to say a few words. Last June, we gave this entire process a Presidential Citation of Excellence and recognized not only the Urban Design Studio of the Planning Department, but DOT, CRA. This has just been an incredibly successful process, and I think, as Mr. Fisher referred to, that it is built on consensus. It's really a reflection of how city government is functioning at its best. And to that note, I just wanted to read a quick paragraph about the AIA-LA celebrates the design guide's emphasis on how urban design strengthens employment opportunities, housing choices, transportation choices, shops and services and amenities within walking distance, safe shared streets, gathering places and active recreational spaces. In essence, urban design directly results in a richer, more vibrant cultural environment. And with that, I'll give you our letter. So thank you. And
Thank you, Mr. Wright. It's always good to have a cheerleading section as we move on in this direction and get that support from those who are involved in design and architecture. So thank you for taking the time for coming to downtown. Thank you, sir. Okay, so I think we're in the clear, right, Barbara? We can move forward. Those are all the cards?
Yes, that's all the speaker cards I have.
Okay, so we can essentially approve and refer to city attorney to prepare the ordinance with technical amendments that pertain to 3A, and 3B we can move in consent. And then I'll report from the chair to the council.
I think, Councilman, there was also a directive from planning to continue the downtown committee that was mentioned.
Yes, and that'll be part of the action of this committee. And looks like we might have to do this again, which I don't mind, in front of the council, so we can put on our dancing shoes and we'll be ready for council when it comes before the horseshoe there. So that being said, that'll be the action of this committee. Next item, Roberto?
That would be item...
Congratulations.
It would be item 2, Councilman. It's a Cultural Heritage Commission report to include the CBS Columbia Square Studios as a historic cultural monument.
Yes, good afternoon. Ken Bernstein with the Office of Historic Resources. This
Good
is
afternoon.
Historic Cultural Monument application for the CBS Columbia Square Studios. The complex was built in 1938 on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood. It's a complex of 5 interconnected buildings designed by architect William Lescaz, who was a pioneering architect of the international style. The complex was the headquarters of CBS Radio, the National Radio Network, established in 1928, and was associated with such notable figures as Bing Crosby, Rosemary Clooney, Jack Benny, Burns and Allen, and many others. The pilot for I Love Lucy was filmed in these studios, and the property ceased operations in 2007 as a broadcast facility. The Cultural Heritage Commission recommendation is that the property meets 4 of the specified historic cultural monument criteria, in that it embodies the distinguishing characteristics of international style architecture, is associated with a master architect, William Lescaz, reflects the broad cultural, economic, and social history of its community for its association with the development of radio and television broadcasting, and is identified with historic personages, several prominent figures in the entertainment industry of Hollywood. There was also, we would add, discussion at the Cultural Heritage Commission, and there may be testimony regarding a particular building on the complex, which is known as Studios B and C, which was a later addition designed by the firm of Parkinson and Parkinson, but suffered significant alterations in 1961. The Cultural Heritage Commission recommendation was to leave this building, leave this complex within the boundaries of the proposed designation, but note that this is no longer a character-defining feature. This is no longer a historic characteristic of the complex, but it is encompassed within the boundary of the designation as recommended by the Cultural Heritage Commission. I'm happy to answer any questions now or after testimony. Thanks.
So, Mr. Morrison, the notion that that element you just described will be included with the overall plan, but that particular segment, we won't be as, how can I say this, true to its historic element because it's basically faded with time.
That's right. So whereas with what would be considered a character-defining feature, a significant historic feature of the complex, the Commission in reviewing future alterations would be applying historic preservation standards, what are known as the Secretary of the Interior's standards for rehabilitation, because this particular element has already lost its historic characteristics, its integrity. We would not be applying those standards with the same rigor, so it could be further altered or even removed without the same level of review.
So I have 4 speaker cards. 2 indicate they support, but 2 others, Mr. Burson, I have a question for you. And 2 others indicate support with amendment. Is there a distinguishing position here, or are they all relatively the same?
Well, I'll let the speakers address that. My understanding is that all are in support of the overall designation, but there has been a request, as was made before the Cultural Heritage Commission, for an amendment specifically addressing Studio B and C.
Okay, then we'll just go through the cards then, just to be clear. We also have Carrie Bonin, and I'm not sure if you want to speak first or want to wait till the end. Wait, okay. All right. So we have with us Andrew Schwartz, then followed by Brian Curran, Jr.
Actually, I'll go first. My name is Brian Curran. I'm the applicant for Hollywood Heritage. We just want to say that Hollywood Heritage agrees with the staff findings that CBS Columbia Square Studios complex in its entirety should be made a historic cultural monument. Opponents will argue that the later addition of the Parkinson and Parkinson Studios B and C should not be included in the nomination, as they are not the work of the eminent architect William Lescaz. We disagree with this assessment, viewing Columbia Square as a rare example of a complete radio and television broadcasting studio in Hollywood, all others of which have either been altered or have been lost. The studio building in question was planned as an element of the studio as early as 1938, and while not being architecturally distinguished, it has unique cultural significance as it provides a vital link between the Columbia Squares and Hollywood's evolution from a radio broadcasting hub to a national television center. We urge the committee to accept the staff's findings and accept the nomination as presented. We also hope that all the historic structures at Columbia Square Studios remain protected during the planning and permitting phase of any future development. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Andrew Schwartz.
Thank you. I'm Andrew Schwartz. I'm the president of Hollywood Heritage.
Good afternoon.
And thank you for allowing me to speak. I think this is a very important issue here to keep B and C because besides, well, things have been altered, but very many important celebrities and other people through the years have appeared there, so it has historical significance. Also, at the time, the proposal right now is to put a 43-story building up there where studios B and C are, and we think that's totally inappropriate for the site. Any development should be much more limited, but that's the proposal that they have right now. And that would really destroy the entire element there and create a great deal of other problems for it. And I think it would alter the historic image.
So, Mr. Schwartz, is it your objection more because of the loss of historic element of that site or because of the nature of the development?
Well, both. It sets a bad precedent. It's something we can pick and choose parts of a site that we say, well, it's not that significant. This we like, but this part we don't. I think you can't do that. It's really got to be all or nothing. And B and C are integral to the site, again, because of the historical nature of the people that had appeared there. Anywhere else that would be considered a very important building. We've lost other buildings in the city that were historic, but maybe that weren't architecturally historic. And again, we're in favor of development, but reasonable development, and we don't believe that the proposal for the site is appropriate, and it would ruin the integrity of the site. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. We have with us Igor Kalashian and Christy McCabe. Hi.
We're going to put up some boards.
Come on up. Oh, we have Vanna White. Okay, now you do have 2 minutes, okay? So you got to go through the Reader's Digest version.
Bad feedback. My name is Edgar Colati, and I'm an attorney with Paul Hastings, Janowski, and Walker, representing the property owner, PPD Gower, with respect to the application filed by Hollywood Heritage. As previously mentioned, the site contains 4 buildings, 3 of which were designed and constructed by William Lescaz, that are identified with the pink and orange highlight on this board. And on this board is the 4th wing, later designed by the Los Angeles-based architectural firm of Parkinson & Parkinson. As the Cultural Heritage Commission correctly concluded, the 4th wing, referred to as Studio BC, lacks sufficient integrity, having been entirely altered for use as studio space in recent history. We agree with the Cultural Heritage Commission and Hollywood Heritage that the 3 buildings designed by William Lescaz merit designation, and the property owner looks forward to rehabilitating all 3 of those buildings and the courtyard to the Secretary of Interior standards. However, where we disagree with the Cultural Heritage Commission is designation of the 4th wing. The Commission made clear, and as Mr. Brinsley's testimony alerted today, that this building does not warrant designation. The only reason that the Commission designated it is because it is located on a parcel. With these other 3 buildings, the city does have the legal authority to designate 3 buildings and not designate the 4th building. The city's municipal code, furthermore, provides the city with legal authority to approve or disapprove the application in whole or in part. As the applicant's historical consultant, Christy McAvoy, will testify in greater detail, this is a very unique circumstance. The applicant has filed an application not for a 43-story building, but for a 14-story office building where this is designed. And this is really, considering the economic times we're in right now, this is really an attempt to halt development. The applicant is committed to...
Okay. Why don't you conclude, and I have a couple of questions.
In conclusion, the applicant looks forward to rehabilitating the 3 Lascaux design building Secretary of Interior standards, but does not feel the 4th wing merits designation.
So the orange area that you have on the board to your left, what is that?
It's the green and the orange. The green portion was constructed in 1961 as a later, I'm sorry, it was constructed in 1939, but was significantly rehabilitated in 1961, which is when it lost its integrity. The orange portion was a 1968 addition, which furthermore took away from the character of the historic building.
And you're saying none of that should be designated?
We concur with the Cultural Heritage Commission that the green and the orange portion, Studio BC, does not have integrity and should not be designated. The Commission's findings, as Mr. Bernstein alluded to, concludes that Studio BC, the green and the orange there, lacks sufficient integrity, having been entirely altered for use as studio space in recent history.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir. Christy McAvoy, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm here today as a technical consultant to the project, primarily focusing on the environmental impact report, which the applicant has been preparing now for some time, and am here only to say that we want to assure the Commission that in the environmental impact report, all of these issues regarding B and C and the rest of the complex get full vetting vis-a-vis the project and its alternatives. It is a complicated situation due to the timing of the cultural heritage review with the CEQA review, but there will be a full vetting of the project in the environmental impact report.
So just to understand the sequence in terms of timing, are you suggesting that these can go on parallel tracks, or are you saying one has to be done?
Actually are almost on parallel tracks, but I'll let the applicant's representative speak to the actual scheduling.
Okay.
They are on almost.
But in terms of you use the term complexity and how to respond. Can you give me an example of what you mean?
It is rare that we have an occurrence where we are looking at the provisions of this particular ordinance with this kind of unique situation and property, and also have a full vetting under CEQA going on with looking at alternatives and so forth. That's the uniqueness of the situation. It's also fairly complex due to the exact nature of the integrity of the buildings on the property, the SCAs, and the role of B and C.
So in order to have a mitigation plan, or however you want to respond to EIR, you need a project description, which has yet to be concluded.
There will be a description and mitigation.
Okay.
Addressing these issues.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Edgar Colladi, and with respect to your first question, the property owner filed applications approximately 2 years ago. The city is currently preparing an environmental impact report, which we anticipate will be circulated in the coming months. The EIR fully analyzes the impacts on the historic resources, including demolition of the Fourth Wing, Studios BC.
Okay.
Which would give the city an opportunity to look at this specific issue and include mitigation measures to protect the historic resources at that time.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Kelly Byrne.
Hi, Kelly Bernard with Council President Eric Garcetti's office. Briefly, we are in support of the Commission's recommendation. We recognize that Studio BC has undergone major renovations, and so it may lack its integrity. But without the completion of the EIR, we think it's more where these issues may have been will be vetted, and we could have had a longer or more extensive public discussion about the nature of or what's going to happen with B and C during that process. We don't have that information yet, and so without that information, we think it's most prudent to support the Commission's recommendation to designate the entire site. We are comfortable that through the EIR process, what happens with BNC Studio BNC will be addressed. In addition, we've talked to the property owner, and we feel that their desire or their concerns will be addressed also with the new revised ordinance that we're working on, and that we can address their concerns through that process as well. So essentially, we are supporting the Commission's recommendation, and we don't think there should be that we should designate the entire site as opposed to excluding B and C. We think we include it all and move forward from there.
So you just want to close this loop, take it to the next cycle of decisions based on information that comes.
That we have now.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. So what will be the action of this committee? This report from the chair to the council that would essentially support the Commission's designation of the entire site, and that'll be the action of this committee. Anything else, Roberto?
Item 4, I'm not sure if there's a report, Councilor.
Oh, you don't have a report, Vince. No, I'm just kidding. I want to get you in trouble. All right. Anybody else here for public comment? Saying none, this meeting is adjourned.